Welcome to Texas History Lessons. I'm Michael, and I just put out an episode, but I wanted to take the opportunity to do a New Year's episode, bonus episode in correct fashion. So with that in mind, a new year is upon us, and I want to wish all of you the best. And I realized I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment to thank all of you that read the Texas History Lessons Substack, along with all of the listeners to the Texas History Lessons podcast. And here at my Cross Timbers home, I've been busy, and my wife, to her dismay, can attest, constantly working in the past on research and writing when I'm not working on present real world jobs and needs. And currently, we've been working on a garden shed when I'm not imagining my time travels and doing other things that we have to do. But since it is the beginning of a new year, I did a little research and I came across an interesting New Year's related piece of writing that was published in the January 2nd, 1836 edition of the Natchitoches, Texas newspaper, the Texian and Immigrant's Guide. And, you think about it, we are close to the 200-year commemoration of that year's significant events. And you know that it's going to be a big deal. I was around during the sesquicentennial, that's a hard word to say, and I remember the festivities for that. They were big festivities in the 100-year mark in 1936 to commemorate the events of the Year of Independence for Texas. And, so that's where we're at. That's how far past this newspaper we are. And you all know that this was a very interesting time for the people calling Texas home at that time. We have the benefit of retrospect to know about all the significant events that happened that year that were going to unfold as the year progressed. The Texian army under Burleson had recently taken control of San Antonio at the very end of 1835 after old Ben Milam had stepped forward and asked his compatriots who would join him in the task at hand, who was going to march into San Antonio and end this siege. Milam fell in battle, but the Texians attained victory. At that moment in time, anything was possible. And had different decisions and actions been made and followed following that New Year's Day of 1836, our entire past, our present, might be quite different. Now, this edition of the Texian and Immigrant's Guide included the terms of General Martin Perfecto de Cosa's capitulation to Edward Burleson, who was head of the Volunteer Army of Texas, having been made with the parties, quote, being desirous of preventing the further effusion of blood and the ravages of civil war. Consider that little phrase, civil war. What was even happening was not even locked in concrete. But Cos agreed to head to the Rio Grande, and the Texians would hold San Antonio. And the paper also includes, on another page, Sam Houston's, who had been named Commander-in-Chief of the Texas Army. He thought he was in charge of that army, I think, that was there in San Antonio, but they didn't really want to give him the time of day. But on December 12th, 1835, he had made a proclamation to the citizens of Texas announcing, along with his justification for the reason they were raising an army to face off with Santa Anna, and it's an interesting read, but that's not for today, that he was prepared to accept the service of 5,000 volunteers. We know that Houston would wait in vain for barely a quarter of that number to offer their service. Heck, 5,000. Had 5,000 people actually stood up and taken arms to support what ended up becoming the Texas War for Independence, lots of things would have been quite different. And so this is one of the few times I will actually give pause and consider what if. I don't like asking what if. I want to know what did happen. But it's nice sometimes to think about it. And the newspaper also included a list of artillery, muskets, cannon, lances, and ammunition delivered by Coast to the Volunteer Army of Texas. It listed things like, say, in Bayard itself, 30 useless muskets, 7 empty ammunition chests, 17 muskets, 1 bugle, 2 boxes of ammunition, 4 large cannon, 1 4-pounder cannon mounted, 5 boxes of ammunition, 4 drums, 4 boxes with 66 hats and 49 blankets of the Company of Lancers. It also included a bale with 12 dozen blankets, 2 trumpets, 1 chinesco, 2 clarions, 1 large clarion, and 2 cymbals. And in the Alamo itself, there was a 2 4-pounder cannon, 2 small brass cannon, 1 4-pound piece of artillery, one howitzer of 5-inch caliber, and a number of other things. You can go to Substack and actually see I included a clip from the newspaper for those 2 things. And then it also included things that were found in the arsenal. But at that moment in time, New Year's Day, 1836, the future was wide open, as it is for us today. We don't know what's going to happen this year. We don't know what's going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years. A lot of people like to act like they do, but it all is based on the decisions we each make and the people that we put in power make. Travis, Fannin, Bowie, Crockett, they were still alive New Year's Day, as were the hundreds and hundreds that would die in the coming confrontation. The actual intent of the conflict still had yet to be determined. Independence wasn't going to be declared until March 2nd. It was a moment both of worry and hope. With valid reasoning, you could either find yourself being optimistic or pessimistic, or kind of hedging your bets and being in the middle, not just being uncertain, which we can be doing right now ourselves. Anything could happen. Anything could have happened that year. We know what decisions happened and were followed and actions were taken, and our future is the same. And I'm not doing anything here to try to convince you anything or preach to you. You all know that. That's the way things are. And that was a situation facing the people of Texas, living in Texas, both Anglos and Tejanos, when the editor of the Texian and Immigrants Guide published the following thoughts on the advent of a new year. And on the Substack, I've made some slight spelling and format changes just to make it a little bit more reading, because they usually kept it a lot of block text, and there were only, I think, 2 words that were spelled incorrectly. But that's neither here nor there. So let's begin with this New Year's wish from 1836. New Year. Time has been divided into ages, years, seasons, months, weeks, days, etc., and every nation and people have had their own particular epochs from which to reckon the happening of events and occurrences. The Jews celebrated Jubilee with many and mysterious ceremonies, and the Greeks and Romans celebrated their games and lustrums with great magnificence, that the origin of these customs might be remembered and a true division of time perpetuated. But the Christians of almost every country have by common accord fixed upon the 1st of January as the period from which to compute the months, days, etc. of the year, and established it as the root of all data. Therefore, the practice of obsolete ceremonies should be revived and new ones instituted in order to celebrate the appearance of this day. For by this day are all our actions and concerns regulated, civil and domestic, public and private, throughout the year. For all classes and distinctions, the new year has much happiness in store, whether enjoyed or not. For the young, there is a time to dance, sing, and make merry. For the middle-aged, there is a time to heap up riches and form their schemes of ambition. And for the old, there is a time to retire from the noise and bustle of the world, count his gains, and pass his days in peace and quietness. Who has not reason to be joyful that another year has found him still in existence? Who will not rejoice that nature is again about to checker the fields with the flowers of spring, to load the trees with all the fruits of summer, and enliven lovely autumn with sports, festivals, and entertainments? Time never folded his unwearied wing, but pursues his onward flight, witnessing changes and revolutions among men, revealing truth and exposing falsehood. Let no man complain that he cannot enjoy all the gifts of nature before the speed of time removes them beyond his reach. For like to every rational creature has she discovered her treasures and beauties. Who then will behold only the dark side of every subject and spend those days in sorrow and sadness intended for his pleasures and delights? Rather rejoice that there is yet a reserve of the good things of earth for succeeding generations. Receive one's own portion with gratitude, and make the best of life while it lasts, however brief it may be. So we wish our countrymen, friends, and readers the great felicity of enjoying to the utmost of all the sweets and enjoyments of life to be found among human beings. We wish all the young and unwedded happy matches and happy results, the middle-aged, ships at sea, and credit at home and abroad, the old and gray-haired the privilege of recounting their past exploits and deeds of glory, and all the happiness of welcoming another new year. And I, as well, wish you all the happiness of welcoming another new year. And that line, make the best of life while it lasts, however brief it may be, that particularly stands out. Or wallow in darkness, worrying about the dark side of every subject. In the near future, I will be concluding the brief detour on Substack into the topic of Texas Killer. Podcast listeners, you have not got to that yet, but you will soon. I'll be bringing that out soon on audio form. I wish I had it already ready for your perusal and listening, but unlike a number of other people, not to name names, every bit of what I share is researched and written the old-fashioned way, with blood, sweat, and tears. I suppose I could surrender and let AI do the heavy lifting and put out whatever I direct it to do. But like Travis in 1836, I will not surrender to that unreliable and often inaccurate way. Then I will, hopefully, return to my journey with Dobie, Bedichek, Webb, and a long list of other guides as I explored what I'm calling the Texan's Guide to Life, which is going to be quite a dominant thing this year for me. When it comes to that particular project, there was an easy way to do it, which would have been really easy, or there's the way that I'm gonna do it, which is to make it up to date and more rewarding both for myself and hopefully for readers and listeners. And I will reveal that there will also be significant time also being spent with Larry Chittenden, the poet rancher of Texas, who had a lot in common with three other Easterners that we're going to spend time with: Owen Wister, Frederick Remington, and Theodore Roosevelt. It's one of those things, a lot of people already know it, most of you do. I've known it, but not to the degree. My understanding of the importance of Wister, Remington, and Roosevelt by digging deep into their lives and works and seeing how important they are to our modern day understanding of America, and yes, even Texas is tied to them. And I also have in reserve a lengthy look at the Texas Immortals, is what I'm calling it. It's a special focus on how Houston and Austin were elevated to the ranks of Texan sainthood. Houston and Austin, the men, not the cities, even though, yeah, Houston and Austin existing as cities with those names is an example of how they became part of our collective identity as opposed to some other people. They weren't necessarily beloved by all, if you can believe it. Looking back from now, you would think, oh, everybody must have loved Sam Houston. Everybody must have loved Stephen F. Austin. Probably more people liked Austin than they did Houston. A lot of people hated Houston. He had a lot of enemies, and for good reason. I'm going to be looking at Elizabeth Ney, one of the people, sculptress, that had a great part in the art of Texas that commemorated both of those people in sculpture and statues. I've still got a bird's eye flight through the history of Galveston that I'm sitting on, a detailed trip to the aftermath of San Jacinto that I'm waiting to revisit and finish. And that's one of the things I've found myself, and I like it. I'll have a project and I'll work a lot of time on it, and then I'll just go on to another project. And that's, for me, is good because it gives me time away from it, and then I can go back and fix anything or improve on it if I can. And yeah, that seems to be a good method. And that's what they've always said. If you're a writer and you're close to a thing, it's hard to judge what you're working on. It's good to set it down and get some breathing room. So that's kind of I have a number of like 5 or 6 different, that's kind of behind the scenes things. I've got a lot of different projects going on at the same time, and I jump from one to the other. And the beauty of it being history is so often I find things in looking into one topic that actually helps improve another topic. And I can say that when it comes to the idea of the essays I've done on the Texas killer, the violence in Texas, when I've been recently digging into the life and journals of Owen Wister, oh wow, he had some perfect thoughts that he had set down in a journal when he was actually visiting Texas, commenting on the people of Texas at that exact same time period that I'm looking at. But I digress. We've got that, and I think I mentioned the aftermath of San Jacinto, along with a number of other projects that are waiting for my attention. And while each of these gets refined in the fire, I will also be sharing a variety of primary source readings to round out our knowledge and understanding. And I don't plan on doing that. I'm not doing that for filler. I think the primary sources are one of the best ways to share history. Reading from the horse's mouth, or listening the horse's mouth, for lack of a better term, going in and actually seeing what people wrote and said back in the day that some things were happening, and then using the work of historians and other writers to give texture and perspective and interpretation to that primary source. That's a really good method also. So yeah, that's what this is, kind of a Happy New Year. Share a little bit of research I've discovered, something I found. I hope it's interesting food for thought. What somebody, unknown writer, wrote back in 1836, or I guess they penned it probably in the end of 1835. And to give you some things to think about as this new year gets going. And let's work together and make the best of it this year. Again, thank you for your time. I look forward to hearing from you and to sharing new things with you all through this year. This is the year that the podcast does not lag behind or lull because I can't keep up with recording. I've got a schedule finally where I'm already got 6 episodes in the can, ready and waiting. And yeah. And so with that in mind, how you could help me, if anything I offer, either through my writing or from the podcast, if you get anything out of it, the best thing you can do for me is share it on social media to other people that like Texas history. And it's not from here on out, and it never has been, the purpose of the podcast is not going to be just for people that are interested in Texas. We're going to be looking at more universal themes with Texas as a focus a lot of the times. But we are going to be visiting all different topics and places and people and times throughout the past, not just in Texas. And the beauty of Texas is that the Texans have a long reach. They reach out and they travel, and they have made an impact in lots of different places. For instance, well, I was going to tell you an interesting part that tied Lord Byron to the foundation of Galveston that I came across quite a while back, but I'm going to save that. I'm not going to spoil that. Yeah, it's a fun subject for me, and I hope you enjoy it. So the number one thing you can do for me is share the podcast. If you are in a position you do want to contribute to help support me in my work, all you have to do is look into the show notes on whatever podcast player you're listening on and click on the Buy Me a Coffee link. By clicking on that link and just buying one book, I think that's what it is. The option I had when I set up the Buy Me a Coffee link was buy me a book. But if you can't do that, that's fine, because I'm been doing this for going on 5 years now, and I have been doing it and will continue doing it because it's what I enjoy, and I enjoy sharing what I learn. And one of the things I learned in biography of Goethe, the German philosopher and poet, was that he had learned that the best way to learn is through teaching. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm always trying to get a better understanding, and hopefully, y'all enjoy it as well. Or why would you be listening to this nonsense? So that's it. This was supposed to be a short thing, and I've rambled on. I'm a rambler. Um, so yeah, let's end it there. Not going to be any bells and whistles on this. No music. Even though I do want to thank Derek McClendon for providing the theme music, it's not going to be any theme music on this episode. I'm just going to hit publish and put it out there. So thanks for listening. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Be kind. Adios.